What's good, sports fans? Welcome to another edition of the Buzzer Beater on the Buffoon Sports Talk Network. I'm Troy Alexander. Got this solo episode for you guys today, and I apologize for it being a little late, but nonetheless, I'm here and I'm ready to talk. So, huge news broke this past week. James Harden finally on the move. He gets traded to the Brooklyn Nets along with like two other teams involved, the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Indiana Pacers. And pretty much I just wanted to throw like a reaction video out there to kind of look at the landscape of the NBA after the trade, which teams benefited, how the Nets will look, etc. So I'll just jump right in. So I'm not going to talk about the Pacers or the Cavaliers too much, even though I think both teams actually got better, especially the Cavaliers and getting Jared Allen. I think he's a great pickup for the Cavs, considering Andre Drummond is a pending free agent at the end of the season. So you got to figure out what they're going to do with that, with Drummond, but with or without Drummond, you still have Jared Allen as a backup piece, and he's a great fit next to that backcourt of Darius Garland and Colin Sexton. So I think the Cavs benefited tremendously from it. I think the Pacers actually did as well because, I mean, I started this off by saying I'm not going to talk about them much, but I will. Like I said, I think the Pacers benefited as well. You ship off Victor Oladipo to the Rockets, and his status was also a little uncertain because he's coming back from a really bad injury. His offense hasn't really looked great, and his defense actually has looked better. So kind of the flip-flop of his original game, because he's always really been like a slasher and a really dynamic offensive player, not really known so much for his defense, but I feel like his roles kind of switched. So, and not just that, but he's also a free agent at the end of this season. So it looks like Indiana didn't want to pay him, and you pretty much swap him for Karis LeVert from the Nets, and now you have maybe a piece to build around. Not saying Karis LeVert can be a cornerstone, like franchise-changing player, but he's shown with the Nets that he can put up 20 a game. So maybe you start there, pair him with Sabonis and Miles Turner, maybe see where that goes. But with those two teams aside, I really want to get into Brooklyn. So when I first saw this trade happen, my original reaction was like, wow, like, okay, it actually happened. Like Harden's actually on the move. And then I really started to assess the Kyrie Irving situation and those three guys in Brooklyn as a trio, in being Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving. So my first initial thought was, this seems a little like backup insurance, like for the Nets, because you can say what you want. Yes, if those three guys are all healthy at the same time and playing together, they can score over 150 points. That's true, but I don't really know this. I don't think anybody knows really the status of Kyrie Irving, because the dude is just so, like, you just can't predict his moves. Like you don't know what he's thinking 1 minute compared to the next minute. Like the guy is just, I don't want to say he's a basket case, but he's like, you just don't really know where his mind is. So for me, this was kind of a backup plan for the Nets. Like, okay, we don't know what's going to happen with Kyrie Irving, but we do have James Harden just in case. At the same time, you trade the whole farm for James Harden. I mean, they traded Karis LeVert, like 3 or 4 first round picks plus a bunch of pick swaps. So and Jared Allen you had to get rid of. So you literally traded the whole farm for Harden. And now the Spencer Dinwiddie injury for the Brooklyn Nets is so much bigger, because at least you had him as insurance. And you don't have that, 17 to 19 points anymore, just in case, something happens to Harden or Durant. And not just that, but he can also be a secondary ball handler if any of those guys get tired, or like I said, if one of those guys goes down. So I think the Dinwiddie injury is a lot more impactful now. That being said, I look at the Nets roster, like I don't think they're done making moves. I believe their GM Sean Marks has even said that they're gonna continue to make more moves, because I mean, how do you deal with guys in the East like Joel Embiid, and is DeAndre Jordan gonna be able to guard him if they play in a playoff series? I don't see that happening. And not just that, who else guards other elite wings in the East? Guys like Jason Tatum, Jimmy Butler, those type of guys. So if I don't think the Nets are done making moves, but on at the same time, like what other assets or pieces do you have to move to be able to bring someone in, maybe like a PJ Tucker or somebody, a guy that can guard wings? You don't have any more pieces really. And another thing about the Nets is all three of those guys have never been known, especially James Harden and Kyrie Irving, have never been known for their defense. So if there's ever a time that James Harden can ever step up defensively, this would be the time, because he's going to have to play defense every night. He didn't do that in Houston. He didn't have to. Their whole game plan was, we're going to outscore the other team, and we're going to hope that guys like PJ Tucker can pick up the slack defensively. That showed that did not work. And so if anyone ever questioned James Harden's defense, rightfully so, go for it. But if we're for sure going to have to look at all three of those guys' defense on every single night now, because we've seen throughout the history of this league, you cannot outscore just planning on outscoring teams in the playoffs. It just hasn't happened. Like, people want to say some people were saying the Warriors were doing that when their dynasty was intact, like 4 years ago or so. But defensively, they were juggernauts, right? They could outscore you and they could lock you down defensively. So there's a huge difference. And the Nets are going to have to show that they can stop people on some nights. You may be able to outscore teams in the regular season and get wins that way, but come playoff time, you throw your plan and your system out the window and the game slows down, and you have to be able to adapt. So I'm very curious to see if those three guys are going to mesh together, not just that, be able to adapt come playoff time. We can say, hey, they got to adapt in the regular season, which is true, but it's really going to come down to the postseason, because that's when things slow down and your high octane offenses not come into question, but you have to adjust. So I'm curious to see what head coach Steve Nash does about that. Very curious to see what their assistant coach and Mike D'Antoni does with that, because those two guys D'Antoni was the head coach and Steve Nash was MVP point guard in Phoenix in the mid-2000s with the whole run and gun Suns, 60 plus wins in multiple seasons. Steve Nash, multiple time MVP. Does this sound a little familiar? AKA the Houston Rockets. I mean, this has kind of shown that it's not been able to work, but we've also never seen three dynamic scores like this on one team. We've seen two, but we've never seen this three. I may get some backlash for this, but in my opinion, watching basketball with my own eyes for about, I don't know, like religiously watching for like the past 14, 15 years, maybe, I would say the most talented, dynamic, all-around scorer that I've ever seen is Kevin Durant. So, and he's shown that he can pair with other superstars to win a championship. Now, granted, it was the Warriors. They were already a juggernaut, right? But he's shown that he can adapt his game. You want to talk about Kyrie Irving. He wasn't doing much winning in Cleveland, right? Before LeBron James got there in 2014. Never even led his team to the playoffs. That being said, he showed that he can adapt his game to play with another superstar. Did it work out? You know, were things all gravy? No, they weren't. He eventually got traded. But he showed that he can play with another superstar and win a championship. Okay, so you've got 2 out of the 3 guys in Brooklyn that are able to do that. Now, I love James Harden. He's one of my favorite players in the league, if not my favorite player. But you got to show him a little bit of criticism. You know, he gets traded to Houston. I believe it was in I think it was the year after the Thunder lost to the Heat in the finals. So it was either the summer of 2012 or 2013. I can't recall. But anyway, the Rockets management has paired star/superstar with Harden year after year, right? They tried that Ty Lawson experiment. That ended miserably because I'm pretty sure Ty Lawson couldn't stay off alcohol or something like that. I don't even remember. That didn't work out. So you pair him with Dwight Howard. That didn't work out. You then pair him with Chris Paul. That worked out great. It really did. Like, there was a year where they won 65 games and they were a game away from reaching the finals, but things happen, injuries happen, and they weren't able to close, and that marriage didn't end well. And Chris Paul gets traded. And then you get Russell Westbrook for him, his childhood buddy, and that doesn't work out. So it only works out for 1 year. They got their asses beat in the second round. So you have to wonder if I think Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant aren't going to have much of a problem being able to mesh. But my question is James Harden. James Harden asked for the trade. He was unhappy in Houston. You got it. Okay. So now you got to show that you can defend and play defense, which he has shown. James has shown that he can play defense when he wants to, but now he's going to have to show it every night. And he's going to have to show me and everybody else watching that he is able to mesh his game with other superstars and play team basketball, because I don't think this one-on-one, night in, night out is going to do it. At least not in the playoffs anyway. So I'm very curious to see the Nets and now the landscape of the NBA. Now, we want to talk contenders. I've been trying to think where the Nets stand now. Their bench scares me because if I'm a Nets fan, I'm a little scared on that bench and I'm looking up into the sky right now because I'm trying to think of their pieces, especially without Dinwiddie there. There really isn't much to be excited for on that bench, man. So I still think Milwaukee's probably the best team in the East. Record-wise, actually, the Celtics are the best team in the East, but along with the Celtics, though, it's like I was saying, man, you put a lot more pressure on Durant now to guard some of these elite wings in the East, and that's fine and all, but that's fine to put that pressure on him defensively. But if your game plan is to outscore teams, then you have to wonder if Durant's going to be able to expend a lot of energy on defense doing that, guarding the best player every night, plus scoring on the flip side. But that's where James Harden and Kyrie Irving come in. I feel like those guys are going to be – Kevin Durant is the best player on that team. I don't think there's any question about that. But I feel like he's going to be the guy that's going to be asked to guard guys every night. And then he's still going to be scoring, obviously, at a high level. But I think Harden and Kyrie are going to have to pick up the slack offensively if that is the direction. So – like I was saying, you have guys like Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum on the Celtics. You got guys like Giannis and Chris Middleton with the Bucks. You've got guys like Jimmy Butler with the Heat, and there's still guys like Bam Adebayo center for the Heat, Joel Embiid, center for the Sixers. Like, are you going to ask like 30-something-year-old DeAndre Jordan to guard these guys? Because I don't think that he has that in him anymore. So, like I said, I don't think Sean Marks is done making moves. I think he said he's going to be making more moves. So, maybe there's going to be guys in the buyout market that he's going to try and go after. There may be guys like elite wing defenders that he's going to, well, not so much elite because you're going to have to give up a lot of assets to get those guys, and they don't have assets anymore. So semi-elite defenders to be guarding wings. The Nets need that. But I look at their team, and I would probably say they're probably the third best team in the East right now. I mean, I'm really high on the 76ers. I love what the Sixers have done. I love what Doc Rivers has done with Joel Embiid especially. I feel like he's kind of told Joel to dominate more in the paint instead of taking so many jump shots. And I think Embiid's really benefited from that. Embiid's one of the best, most talented players in the league, and especially in the paint. I mean, that guy can do just about anything in the paint. So I'm really high on the Sixers. I still think the Bucks and the 76ers are the two best teams in the East when it's all said and done, and then probably the Nets. So, it's been a really crazy past few years in the NBA. Like, we've never seen so many I don't think we've ever seen so many superstars moved like this much. Like, Chris Paul's been, say what you want if you don't think he's a superstar, my bad. But Chris Paul's been moved multiple times within the past few years. Russell Westbrook, Anthony Davis, now James Harden. So now, the reason I'm bringing this up is I feel like if you have the opportunity to get a superstar, you do it, because at the end of the day, talent wins the games. It does. I mean, say what you want about the NBA or basketball. It's a tall man's game. It is. But I feel like at the end of the day, talent, when it really matters, talent's going to win you games. So I feel like you do go out and you get James Harden, but you got to wonder. You have to wonder, where else is it going to come? Where else is, outside of those guys, what else do you have? So that's yet to be seen. But yeah, I just wanted to post a video real quick about my thoughts, my reaction to the trade. And if you guys really like this video, let me know with a comment down below. I will drop Twitter links, our Gmail account. If you have any questions, email them to us, like us, and like I said, just comment and let me know what you guys think. We're on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts, anywhere you get your podcasts, listen to us. Buffoon Sports Talk. Until next time, guys. See ya. Thanks.